Who's hot and who's not? 3-game series against the Phils. We're going to find out if the Phillies are for real and if the Marlins can turn things around. I don't know, but nevertheless, full series preview and recap on the recent action from the Phillies with our man Alex Carr on today's Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins. It's your daily Marlins podcast, of course, with me, Peter Pratt. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter, guys, at MiamiMarlins_UK. Subscribe to the pod. It is free, available everywhere. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching. Hello, you can see us and you will see Tuesday's episode. Alex Carr is in the house. Alex, how we doing, brother?
Hello, Mr. Pete. Always good to be here. Very, very excited.
No doubt about it. Thanks for joining me, mate. I think it's your second appearance now on Locked On Marlins, and
racking them up.
Absolutely a veteran, no doubt. It's fair to say, I know why you said that you're pleased to be here, because the Phillies are scorching right now, mate. You are. I mean, we got to preface it with it's just been a series against the Nats, but nevertheless, you are setting franchise records right now offensively. Absolutely insane.
Yeah, it was a pretty spectacular 4-game series. I can't lie to you. It just felt, it didn't even feel competitive, which is unfortunate because, the Nationals are 3 years removed from a world championship. So you would hope for something a little bit better for their fan base. But, Phillies fans were definitely thrilled. It was, just home run after home run after home run. And everybody was hitting them. Didn't matter who they were. Nick Maton got a couple in there. Derek Hall got a couple in there. Just a lot of guys and Nick Castellanos, very importantly, got a couple in there.
He's coming alive.
He really is. He looks actually pretty good since, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
I know the moment. I know the moment for Nick Castellanos. I know it exactly. When the reporter piped up to him and said, basically, can you hear the boos and that chaos ensued? No surprise, Castellanos then goes on to start turning it around, right?
Yeah, since then, he has been pretty good. It's also, even after that, there was a home run he hit. It ended a month-long drought for him, and that really helped him kind of get the monkey off his back. And now he looks like a completely different baseball player, which is shocking. And I don't just mean that statistically. Like, he's putting up good at bats. He's doing lots of good things, which was not the case for Nick Castellanos early in the season. So if he can, if he can be any semblance of himself for the remainder of this season, the Phillies are all the success that they're experiencing now. Combine that with a real Nick Castellanos, the re-addition of Bryce Harper, Gene Segura obviously working his way back as well. He's in the everyday lineup, but still needs some time. But if you can get all those guys going, wow, it's going to look pretty good, I would think.
Wow is the word. How far away is Bryce now? I've seen he's back in the booth, so he's doing some broadcasting. So he must be getting there.
He was so good too. I was not expecting him to be very good in the booth, and he was spectacular. Because you mic him up during the games, and he's not Jazz Chisholm. He's not giving you electric quotes and things like that. In the booth, he was spectacular. Looked great, sounded great. He was awesome. But he is the cautiously optimistic return is, early September. The Bryce Harper likely return, because he's a superhuman, is before the end of the month, apparently.
Oh, wow. That is Bryce. That is his MO, right? Everyone has a timeline, and then there's a Bryce Harper timeline, and it's completely different to everyone else's. So, great to see. This is the beautiful thing for the Phils. Like, and it's not that I follow the Phils really closely, but like a couple of things stand out to me. They've gone on fire. There's a couple of milestone moments, though. Manager change, and it has gone exceedingly well since. And Bryce Harper down. You're thinking, oh boy, is this going to sink the Phils? It hasn't happened. They've actually, we've just seen it against the Nats. The offense is firing. But let's go back to that manager change. Just how big was that moment now? And what's changed?
I mean, as somebody who was calling for, I'm being dramatic, but calling for Joe Girardi's head pretty much 2 weeks after they hired him. I mean, it just goes to show, a lot of people say the manager doesn't have a massive role in today's game, and while that may be true, they're mostly making decisions based on matchup and based on paperwork they have in front of them. The manager's presence is a big deal. And that's the biggest thing that Rob Thompson has added that Joe Girardi lacked. Was this guy has known these players for going on 5 years now, I believe. Obviously being their bench coach, he is the envoy between the manager and the players. So perfect choice for the rehire, and props to the Phil's front office for that. But it really has been a completely different feel. I mean, just making some of the most basic decisions. Joe Girardi was very, we have this guy for this inning, and even though that's not how the bullpen was constructed, he was like, you're going to be, pitching the 7th, and you're going to be pitching the 8th, and no matter who's struggling, it's going to stay this way, and we're not going to play the hot hands. And just very, he's Binder Joe. That was his name. Just has his binder, and he plays by the book, right? But having Rob Thompson, it's been immeasurable. I mean, it's been absolutely massive. And it mostly shows in the chemistry of these guys. I mean, they're having fun playing baseball. They love each other. The young guys are getting to play, which is huge. Joe Girardi could never, would never. It's those little things, the lineup decisions, the bullpen management, the chemistry that he brings, being the loudest voice in that clubhouse. It's huge. It's absolutely massive. Yep.
Wow. It must be amazing to have an offense that hits home runs all the time, to have a bullpen that's managed effectively, and lineups that are constructed in a way that makes sense. This doesn't sound like baseball to me. What's going on?
It doesn't sound like Phillies baseball.
It definitely doesn't.
It's shocking. But truly, I mean, you look back at all of the things that they did this offseason in, reassembling this bullpen, right? They valued stuff over command, and they were like, we can work on these guys. We can make it work. Obviously, it didn't work for Jerry's Familia, who go away. Good riddance.
He's gone.
Goodbye. It was terrifying to watch him. But, for guys like Brad Hand, who have seen a resurgence, guys like Andrew Bellotti, who have completely turned into these. I don't even know how Andrew Bellotti morphed into what he is today, but he has, one of the top 10 K rates in baseball. Jose Alvarado, just switching up his pitch mix a little bit, has just completely flipped the bullpen around. And not only that, but they're being put in scenarios where they're set up to succeed. Who would have thought wraparound innings are at an all-time low with the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen now that Joe Girardi is gone, which I think any average baseball fan could have told you that was, putting harm on their arms. So, it is a huge shift, and it does not seem like it would be Phillies baseball, but here we are, a couple months later, and they're doing pretty good.
Indeed. We've got a couple of things that we need to, that you need to help bring me up to speed on in terms of the trade deadline and the activity and the moves the Phillies made. They were relatively aggressive, I would say. So let's get into them shortly. Before we do that, first ad of the day, and it's our good friends over at Built Bar. And here's the question for you. Have you tried those puffs? If you haven't, you're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. Guess what? There's a new flavor in town. Boy, oh boy. It is, let me introduce you to this new flavor. You ready for this now? Cookie dough chunk puffs. Cookie dough chunk puffs. Light and chewy texture, real chocolate dough chunks, and of course, covered in 100% real chocolate. Basically, it's the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of making it. Sounds amazing. And it's healthy for you. 15 grams of protein, 160 calories. Cookie dough chunk puffs sound amazing. They're available right now at built.com. You can use promo code LOCKED15 as LOCKED15 and get 15% off your order. Reminder, cookie dough chunk puffs. LOCKED15 is the promo code. 15% off your order at built.com. All right then, Alex, give it to me then. The Phillies, for me, had a very nice deadline. What was your general assessment of it, and what were the key moves they made?
Yeah, it was solid. It was, looking at it now, I feel a lot better about it than I did, only because, they went into this deadline saying, Logan O'Hoppe and Ben Brown, who eventually were traded, were guys that they were reluctant to deal. Obviously, both ended up getting dealt. Both were in my I would say top 8 prospects, even though, people were looking, especially Cubs fans were looking on MLB.com, and they saw Ben Brown was like the 26th ranked prospect, and they're like, that's it? That's all we got? No, believe me, Ben Brown is very good. The reason I think that they were willing to deal both of these guys is because, Logan O'Hoppe, obviously with JT Realmuto, Garrett Stubbs at the major league level, blocked completely organizationally. Yeah. Center field was a big place they needed to upgrade, and they ended up using Logan O'Hoppe for a trade that would do that for them. And then as far as Ben Brown goes, just an absolute, he's very good. Just the injury history is a little bit worrisome. And they also, they really needed a bullpen arm. So they got David Robertson with that, and that was, for me,
he's back.
Yeah, for me, ultimate redemption arc for David Robertson here. He's been stellar. I mean, he's throwing harder than he ever has in his whole career. His cutter is unbelievable. I mean, it even tricks me when I'm watching on the broadcast, which is shocking because it looks like it's about to, sweep down like his slider does. And instead it stays completely straight. And then last minute, it has some late movement. And everybody swings and misses at it. And it's really, honestly, very impressive how he has managed to battle his way back. So very glad to have him as an addition. And I think the Phillies were really eager to pursue a bullpen arm because they felt like they weren't going to get a starting pitcher up until, the last 15 minutes of the deadline, where thank goodness the Angels called and they said, hey, you still want Noah Syndergaard? The Phillies were like, heck yeah, we do. So that trade involved Mickey Moniak and Yadiel Sanchez. Yadiel Sanchez being slept on very much as a piece in that deal. Very good peripheral numbers in the low minors. Things can obviously change. They are very volatile. Prospects are very volatile when they're as young as Sanchez is. So, something to keep in mind. But I think overall the Phillies will be glad that they made that deal 10 times out of 10. Just because, Mickey Moniak, even though he set up very well to succeed in Los Angeles, was not really going to have any chance of succeeding in Philadelphia. It just wasn't going to happen. And he still really, really struggles against breaking balls. That being said, hit 2 home runs already with the Angels in 5 games. Could be something to watch, although he did just get hurt and he'll be out for 2 months, which is unfortunate.
That's unfortunate.
That is really unfortunate timing. And then the big one, the big marquee trade that they made, which Marlins fans, I'm sure, know this guy, but Brandon Marsh of the Angels, they 1-for-1 with Logan O'Hoppe, who was their, I think that he was ranked number 3 by MLB, but he ranked like 4 or 5 by Baseball America and Baseball Prospectus. Logan O'Hoppe, catcher, blocked organizationally, as I mentioned. And, that trade, again, I was wary of that trade to start because obviously Logan O'Hoppe, top 100 prospect status, pretty valuable when it comes to a trade market like this. But the problem is a lot of organizations already have their catching situations figured out. So his value wasn't as steep as one might expect. So, they were able to go out, get 5.5 years of control with Brandon Marsh. And I mean, Marlins fans know all about him. He's got a plus glove, plus speed, really good arm in center, and hopefully they can reform his swing, which it sounds like they're very confident they're going to be able to do. And he has not, I will say, he has not been swinging and missing much in a Phillies uniform. Granted, it's only been 4 games, but he looks pretty sharp.
Nice to hear. It is the name. It's been a name that was connected with the Marlins at the last deadline, and I've been tracking ever since. And what I must say, and just taking a step back from it all, this podcast is annoying me already because we've already talked how the Phillies seem to be doing everything right, and now added to that, from a trade perspective, what have they done? They've looked, where have we got a surplus of talent, and how can we go out and acquire a guy where we have a need? Which effectively is what they've done. We've got a catcher here, a top 100 prospect. We're not going to need him. He's blocked. We need a center fielder. We're going to go out and get one with 5.5 years of control, a former probably top 50 prospect in reality in Brandon Marsh, maybe even higher than that. Okay, he's had some struggles, but the Phils doing exactly what the Fish need to be doing. They've got a surplus of arms. We've got a massive gaping hole in center field because we messed around with Starling Marte and didn't re-sign him. And what have the Marlins done? Traded a couple of bullpen arms for a prospect shortstop. I mean, come on. This is so frustrating to hear the Phils are doing everything right.
Well, Pete, if you play your cards right, I hear Mickey Moniak of the Angels is available if you want to.
Oh, my days.
My
days. And by the way, Mickey Moniak, it's an interesting one where obviously a big name in a big draft spot, clearly. And there's always that history and that baggage associated there, maybe. And it was almost like forced. It felt forced in the Phillies organization, from afar. I'm obviously not a Phillies fan. I don't cover it that closely. That was just the take I had. And so for him, I think it's nice for him just to go away and reset and maybe start again and just have a fresh start for Moniak. And it wouldn't surprise me. I know he had a great spring too. He was on the cusp of making the opening day roster and got hurt.
Well, he did
on the last at bat, right?
Roster. Yeah, they had announced that he made the opening day roster, and then unfortunately, he got the last game of spring. He got hit in the wrist, and those injuries can be worrisome. They can linger for a while.
They can.
But he's back home now. He's from LA, so he's back over that way.
Mm-hmm.
With family, he's got Mike Trout to learn from. Got the factors are limitless. He if he's going to succeed anywhere, it's going to be there, right? Especially in a non-competitive environment, and it's really a shame that he's gotten hurt now. But I'm rooting for him. And you know what's crazy? A month ago, or not a month ago, a year ago, he didn't have any trade value whatsoever. None. Zero. And they made some strong adjustments with him, and he showed a lot of promise in the minors this year and obviously this past spring. So rooting for him, keeping my fingers crossed. I hope he succeeds.
Me too. It was a name because of the name and the draft pick and the history. There's always a buzz around the name, and right. Like you said, he was on the cusp of making the roster. The last at bat, he ends up effectively getting hurt, and you're like, okay, where's things are going to end up again for Moniak? What's the future hold? And it's. He's one of those players that like Phillies fans will always, I think, root for anyway now and would like to see him do well. But, I think fundamentally they've kind of moved a few pieces around and ended up with Brandon Marsh, which I think is an upgrade over Mickey Moniak, to be honest with you. And, added in, obviously, someone that can help them now, Thor, for this postseason run. And obviously Robinson as well really helps in the bullpen as well. One of the other, I guess, collateral damage, which was interesting, a day or two after the deadline. And this kind of feeds into the Marlins too, but we'll talk about it shortly, or first anyway. Didi Gregorius was DFA'd, which was that a surprise?
No. No.
No.
Man, he has been so bad. When they re-signed him, after the 2020 season, when he was spectacular in 2020, absolutely brilliant. But there's a reason, why there wasn't more of a market for him, I'll say. And it's because his peripherals they told a completely different story in that, he's just, he is completely dependent on the place that he plays, which is why he succeeded at Yankee Stadium. It's why he had a good 2020 with the Phillies. Short porches are where he needs to be. Otherwise, there's just no way. There's simply no way. And look, he gave some baseballs some rides this year. He was definitely staying more towards the middle of the field. There's reason to believe he could bounce back at some point if he turns into more of a line drive hitter. But as things currently stand, I mean, it was constant just pop-ups or strikeouts with him. Just there was no in between. Hardly any hits. Any hits that he did have were bloops. And look, the glove was a little bit better. The glove actually looked pretty okay. Yeah. But no, I hate to say it this way. Great guy, great person. Questionable beliefs about what vaccines can do to your body, but very very interesting take there with his pseudo gout. But it was time. It was definitely time. And I just hope he lands on his feet. He deserves another shot somewhere. Just it was not going to happen with the Phillies.
Was that driven by the fact that Gene Segura was coming back, and then they just were kind of rolling with Stott, I guess, and maybe there's someone else playing middle infield, I forget, but was that what drove it?
I just saw a stat today. Bryson Stott has struck out 9 times in his last 134 plate appearances.
Wow.
So I mean, I think they're pretty confident that Bryson Stott's going to put it together. I mean,
Yeah.
I certainly am. And then they also have, as well as Gene Segura, Nick Maton. Nick Maton is just a spark plug for the Phillies, and he's up now. So they really didn't need a left-handed bench bat of Didi Gregorius's caliber, especially also with Derek Hall on the roster. And that's another thing about their deadline that I didn't even mention. They got so much better with addition by subtraction, in that Odubel Herrera, Juris Familia, and Didi Gregorius all ended up not being in Phillies uniforms after the deadline, which was just huge, just absolutely huge.
And that's, again, that's almost, what the Phillies fans are asking for, but that's why it becomes a really successful deadline is you cut the dead wood, not afraid to cut the dead wood, clear the spots for the guys that are there and delivering the young dudes. Like you said, the culture around the team now is different. He's happy to let the kids play, let's say, not afraid to go, hey, these dudes aren't doing it for us anymore. Let's shuffle the deck. And again, this feeds back into the Marlins. This is really disappointing me, this podcast. It really is. Because not only are they managing the team well, the bullpen is set up nicely. They're making trades using organizational depth to go and do it. Now, what they're doing is cutting dead wood mid-season, not afraid to do it. Jesus Aguilar still on this Marlins roster. What are the Fish doing? They're doing absolutely everything the opposite way around to the Phillies this year. This is really disappointing, this pod.
Sorry, Pete. I mean, yeah, but I'm with you. I mean, Lewin Diaz should be playing every day at this point.
Should
right?
be. It's crazy.
They've done well, I guess, with the outfield situation, and with Avi Garcia being down, I guess it makes it a little bit easier.
Yeah, it did.
But Gerard should be up and playing every day. Like I
have no idea what's going on with Gerard.
I'm a little confused as to just why they are deciding to keep trying to compete, I guess is the question here. I'm really confused as to why they held on to Pablo Lopez, especially hearing how close that deal got for an upper level minor league infielder being obviously Oswald Peraza. Like, obviously. Why would you not make that deal? That feels so strange. You could have locked up shortstop, second base, Jazz Chisholm, Oswald Peraza. Like,
I know.
That feels like it should have been.
You have to do it, right?
A no-brainer. Feels like it should have been a no-brainer, especially with, Pablo's value is probably not going to get higher.
No, I'm with you.
This starting pitching market was barren. So,
yeah,
I don't know. Really confusing.
Oh, boy. All right. Well, let's look ahead to this series real shortly. But before we do that, reminder, this episode is also brought to you by our good friends over at BetOnline and BetOnline.net. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. You can find all your favorite sports and events, the number one online source for odds, lines, and games. They've got everything covered. They've got Major League Baseball, of course, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, golf, tennis, Formula One, you name it. BetOnline.net. Absolutely everything there for you. So head over to the website today, BetOnline, to learn more about the action happening today, tomorrow, next week. They've got you covered. BetOnline, where the game starts. And where does this series start? We've got a 3-game set going here, and I think there's some really intriguing matchups here. Obviously, the Phils have got some strength going in game 1, which is tonight. We're recording this on Monday, but it's for Tuesday. And the Phils, Zach Wheeler, after a shaky start to the year, has really kind of settled back into form. Braxton Garrett going against him, which has been a real nice surprise for the Marlins too. The Phils are looking to just keep the pedal down here. I think if they can keep the offense alive, then, clearly the Marlins are struggling a little bit offensively themselves. So if the offense is alive, I think the Phils are probably going to steamroll the Fish here. But Wheeler going in game 1, he is back, right, to Zach Wheeler 2021.
Yeah, he is. He's that guy. I mean, he really, when initially the Phillies signed Zach Wheeler, a lot of people were like, "Oh, look at how much Zach Wheeler has learned from Jacob deGrom," and I was like, "Not really. It doesn't really feel that way." I was wrong. He is just constantly sitting fastball cutter now, fastball slider technically, but it's fastball slider pretty much the entire first and maybe 2.5 times through the order. And then he mixes in the curveball. He mixes a changeup every now and again. I mean, it's just, he is so good at keeping you off balance. So good at tunneling all of his pitches. That's the hardest part about facing him. He's got velocity, but then his stuff is so deceptive because you just can't tell what's coming. And he's Zach Wheeler, man.
He is.
The Phillies were brought an interesting conundrum this past week when, they faced Patrick Corbin. They were very much in the mix for Patrick Corbin, down to the last minute, I guess 3 years ago now. And boy, would the trajectory of this franchise look different if they had selected Patrick Corbin over Zach Wheeler.
No doubt.
I'll tell you what.
No doubt.
Wow.
Yeah. I kind of wish he went to the Mets, to be honest with you, but Corbin, I mean.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
That would have been funny. That would have been funny. All the Braves.
He is. There's a lot of Patrick Corbin discourse going on Twitter lately. He's bad. Don't worry about it. He's bad. He's so bad. He's terrible.
I mean, the only problem with Corbin is you look at his starts against every other team this year, and you look at his 2 starts against the Fish. I think there's like 2 7 innings, no earned runs, 10 Ks.
But they just can't hit lefties at all, right?
The Marlins. I don't know what's happened this year, and this is the weird, funny thing with the
years
Fish.
past too, though, right? Left-handed pitching has been their bane.
It's not been just this year. It's been ongoing for years now. So the joke has been, a soft tossing lefty in the Marlins. You can call it there and then, like they're cooked. So I don't know what's going on. And to your point earlier on, like Don Mattingly, this is his 7th year now. James Rowson with the team, this is his 3rd. There's some flaws that are fundamentally there with this Marlins team, and those flaws are not improving. No adjustments are being made. And I mean, this is the one question I hear, like reporters asking players, one of the go-to questions: what adjustments are you making, right? And players will tell you, and this is what I'm working on, whatever. Okay. I'm not seeing any adjustments at all being made against lefties. And it's truly head scratching. But again, I don't want to go down another disappointing angle here for the Fish. Boy, oh boy, Alex Carr, just the bringer of pain.
I'm not trying to, Pete. I'm not. I promise.
I love it, mate. No, I'm only joking. I'm only kind of joking. I think we've got the marquee matchup though on Wednesday, in my opinion. Anyway, Sandy Alcantara going against Thor. That should be sensational in Game 2. Sandy is back with a bang after a couple of off starts for him, which means he didn't go over 7 innings, but he came back with a complete game against the Reds, which was great. Thor, I think, had a little bit of a sticky start in his first Phillies start. I can't recall who that was against. Maybe it was the Nats or someone else, but
it was against the Nationals. Yeah, it was the first game of this 4-game series. It was not good, but he also hadn't pitched in 10 days. So
yeah, that doesn't help.
I'm going to cut him a break on that one, I think. He didn't look his sharpest, but honestly, he still managed 5 decent innings, a complete game, if you will, because that game was rained out and called. But he was fine. I do think that he is going to be a guy to watch for any fantasy baseball players or whatever out there. Just because the Phillies have done a really good job of optimizing, pitch selection, and tweaking arsenals to really get the most out of what guys are throwing. And I think Noah Syndergaard is going to be a big target for them on that front. And I think he'll probably improve in his time here. We'll see. I could very well be wrong, but he's got some pretty decent secondaries that he could definitely start throwing more.
If it goes well, chances they look to enter into kind of extension conversations, or is that unlikely?
I think it's probably unlikely, just given, maybe if they see some really good things that they like in him and they think they can, build up his velocity again a little bit more, maybe. No. I don't think it would be a long-term extension, and I think he's going to be looking for something a bit longer term, especially if he finds something in the second half. Because he's shockingly only 30 years old. So
feels like he's at least 35, doesn't it? Like
it's incredible. It's incredible. But it really, the mileage on his arm is substantial, and I'm not sure how interested the Phillies would be in keeping him around long term, especially given they have 3 guys who by next year are going to be knocking at the door. So Griff McGarry, Andrew Painter, and Mick Abel. So that's also going to factor into the equation. I do think though they will definitely be shopping for one starting pitcher this offseason, seeing how they weren't able to get a long-term connection this deadline.
Yep. 2 final questions, and then I'll let you get out of here. Let's briefly revisit the trade of all trades between the Marlins and Phillies a few years back. And again, just to add in more pain, listen, if I was going to offer you that trade again, Sixto Sanchez, Georgie Alfaro for JT Realmuto, I assume you're still happy to pull the trigger on that trade, right?
Don't forget about Will Stewart. Will Stewart was also in the deal.
Oh my days, the forgotten man.
Yes, I mean, JT Realmuto, I just wrote something about it for our outlet Inside the Phillies, part of the Sports Illustrated network, if you want to go check that out.
There you go.
But I just wrote something about it. JT Realmuto in his last 57 games is either first or second in every single category among current catchers.
There you go. He's back.
I mean, we're talking everything: base running, defense, weighted runs created, RBIs, runs, home runs, you name it. He's either first or second. And he has been, I mean, the resurgence of him this year after such a terrible start. I mean, he went into May 22nd with like a 5-something OPS. He looked terrible. He looked
I remember.
Awful.
I remember him being shocking.
Yeah. And now he's right back at it. He is doing great of late. So, he picked a really good time. Hopefully it stays that way. But yes, I pull that trigger 10 times out of 10 once again. Unfortunately, Sixto just can't stay healthy, but also it feels like the Phillies had a good finger on the pulse, I think, of what kind of, I don't want to be derogatory here, but like, what kind of athlete Sixto Sanchez was. And I'm not sure he's taking it as seriously as he needs to be.
I think that's one of the main knocks on Sixto. And like you said, the Phils have that insight. Marlins maybe don't. And nevertheless, the Marlins, we did get to see him. Let's not forget that in 2020.
Oh my gosh.
We did get to see it. And everyone was waxing lyrical. And it was sensational. And unfortunately, injuries have hit. And then you get the knock-on of the work ethic, the professionalism, all this kind of stuff. More Instagram, less baseball. He seems happy with that. But nevertheless, it's great to see Realmuto, back. I'll always be a fan of Realmuto for sure. And it's great to see him, delivering. Be interesting. He's actually... I think he likes playing against the Marlins too. I feel like in our last series, he had a good series against the Fish too when the Phillies swept the Marlins. So, it's...
That was actually, I think that's when it started. I think that's
there you go.
his streak really began. So thanks for that.
More pain. More pain. All right. So you've got 2 young guys going for the Fish in this series. You've got Braxton Garrett and Edward Cabrera going in game 3. Which one of them most excites you Oh, okay. Easy.
Slam
it.
Slam it.
Slam dunk,
he is.
baby.
Wow. His changeup looks like Sandy Alcantara's, which is terrifying.
I know.
And he's really good. He's really, really good. And I personally, as somebody who likes to follow the Marlins, I'm glad they didn't trade him. I think that, he's going to be pretty good for a little while here. As long as he can stay healthy and keep himself in line, I think he'll be good to go.
Yeah, me too. I'm absolutely really pumped about Cabrera. I really like him too. I do. It's just a health thing with him. If he can, this next 2 months I think are just so critical for him. If he can just every 5th day just get it rolling, and I think that's a real big asset for the Fish going into 23. Yeah. We'll wait and see what they do. They do need to move some arms, clearly. But nevertheless, I think, Edward Cabrera more fits the Marlins profile to keep, where, 5 years plus of control, league minimum, that's what the Marlins are looking for, I think, and move on from like a Pablo or something. So, that's the way it goes. Where you thinking this series goes, obviously, Sandy is going in one of the games, but that didn't matter in the last series because ended up getting a sweep and Sandy was beaten.
Yeah, I mean, that was the shock of the century for me. Yeah. But I think I'll conservatively say 2-1 for the Phils. When I was on Fish Stripes for that same series, everybody was like, Marlins are going to sweep. Marlins are going to sweep. Marlins are going to sweep. It was a 4-game series, right? Or was it 3 games?
I think it was 3. I think it was 3.
I think it was 3 too. But it turned out to be a Philly sweep. I was shocked. I was like, Philly's going to lose this series 1-2. There's no way. I was shocked. So, take everything with a grain of salt coming from me, I suppose. But I think probably conservatively 2-1 Phils. I think the Marlins, obviously a Sandy Alcantara game is a Sandy Alcantara game. And I think, it's up to really the Marlins offense at that point. If they want to decide to win that day, then they probably can.
They often don't like to try and win on sandy days. It's a bit, it's like Jacob deGrom 2.0, basically, where, you just get your stud and the offense just goes cold and, it is what it is. But, it'll be fun to watch. It's a very different viewing experience from me to you and the Phils and, where you guys are at and trending. Clearly, right in the thick of things, right in the hunt now and added at the deadline, making all the right moves. It feels different from us Marlins fans. It's more like, what's the Edward Cabrera start going to look like? What can we get out of Braxton Garrett? Is Sandy? And then what are you getting out of, Blade, Burdick, LeBlanc? They've dropped the C. I thought it was LeBlanc. Now it's LeBlanc. I mean, you can't even pronounce the guy's names. That's how bad it is for the fish. Like he gets promoted and we don't even know how to say his name. That shows what kind of state this Marlins team and organization's at right now. But, it's going to be fun. I always have a soft spot for the Phils. I like entertainment, and the Phils...
It's always
entertaining, brother.
That is for sure. Whether they're going good or going bad. But here's one positive piece of, I don't want to call it advice, but coming from a lifelong Phillies sufferer, the Marlins have incredible pitching depth, and if they make the right moves and spend a little bit of money, they could very well turn things around very quickly.
Agreed.
The talent is definitely there. So. I know I've caused a lot of pain on this podcast, but everybody out there should know it's definitely not hopeless when it comes to Miami. They are really good at developing pitching and consistently seem to be finding really good arms. The problem is they need to learn, I think, when to let go of some of them, as well as when to spend a little money when you have to and what to spend it on. Maybe next time, don't go for the budget option of Avi Garcia. Instead, spend the extra $5 million a year for the Kyle Schwarbers of the world and things like that.
This is it. It's the perfect assessment there from the fish. They went a tier or two below, and it burned them. And the money is still spent, but the production is not delivered. And so it sinks the offense. Pitching's been there this year, but the offense just hasn't, and it is what it is. We're bang out of time. Alex, great to have you back on. That was, I hope, fun for everyone listening, particularly the Phillies fans tuning in. I hope they've really enjoyed that one. And some of the Marlins fans, we love pain. We're used to it too. But for those that aren't watching and have the graphics to help them, where can people find you and your work out there as well on Twitter and obviously all the work you do?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at AlexCarrMLB, and you can find me on. Hopefully soon I'll be back to the Twitch landscape, but you can find me at Take a Balk. I really like streaming. Time is just not a thing that I have right now. But I'd much rather be on podcasts with Pete Pratt. So you can find me on those places. And hopefully down the stretch here, we'll all have some exciting stuff to cover and think about and talk about.
No doubt about that. All right then, guys, that is us done for Tuesday's episode of Locked On Marlins, a 3-game series against the Phils, which I think looks to be some enticing pitching matchups for sure. Very intrigued to see the way it goes, and that Edward Cabrera start in Game 3 to me looks a real mouth-watering one for sure. We are back tomorrow, of course, guys, because it's a daily pod. And so we're back tomorrow, Wednesday's episode, and I have takes were made in the house on Wednesday, so that will be spicy. I would recommend that you don't let your children listen to the podcast in the car with you. So just to call that out now, it could be PG plus or something. So yeah, back tomorrow, guys. Alex, thank you again for joining me. That's Peter Pratt, Alex Carr signing out on Tuesday's episode, Locked On Marlins. And back tomorrow, takes were made.